Morning, precious men of valor. Welcome again to a new and first edition of Women Free Yourself from Your Chains by the Leadership Excellence for Women by Women. On May 8, 2020, not long after the global shutdown due to COVID pandemic, God revealed to me that many women and children were now trapped with their abuser in the house. And as consequence, many will die from domestic abuse. In the dream, that was actually in a dream. And in the dream, God instructed me to make a video to preach and ask people to pray for women and children victims of domestic violence. The video is actually on the Leadership Excellence for Women by Women Facebook to watch. Within few months of that dream, things started to manifest physically. And we've been all witnessing so many women and children dying from domestic violence. Because of that, I was really pushed to bring to the platform today great men of valor, great women of valor, that could talk about such a deep issue. And the title of our first edition of Women Free Yourself from Your Chain talk show is called Jdws, a New York-based nonprofit, international nonprofit that supports and helps women to know everything needed when in a domestic violence relationship, when planning to leave the abuser, when starting a new life. What is domestic violence? Abuse is one partner exerting control and power over the other. Domestic violence takes many forms: psychological, verbal, physical, sexual, and economic violence. Although a person may be the victim of only one form of violence, several forms may be present at the same time. Similarly, forms of partner violence can change over time. All these forms can be used to control the victim. What does physical domestic, but today we are going to focus actually on physical domestic violence. What does physical domestic violence looks like? They happen with firearms. They happen with knives. They happen with hands around the neck. They happen with beating and jostling. They happen with burns and bites. They happen with physical coercion. They happen with homicide, basically death. That is what domestic violence looks like. I would like for our beautiful guests to introduce themselves. And I am going to start from my left with Miss Stigliano. Good morning, Miss Stigliano Gilda.
Good morning.
How are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Would you mind introducing yourself? Tell us your name, where are you from, what do you do, who you are, please.
So I'm Gilda Stigliano, and I am 65 years old as of last week. And
You look
I
beautiful.
am from, thank you, I'm from New Hampshire. I grew up in Maine, and I'm a real estate broker. I have a business that I run. It's just me. I'm self-employed for almost 25 years. And I have a 24-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old grandson who live with me.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself. And again, welcome to the platform.
Thank you.
Mr. Haidara Hassan,
Yes.
Good morning.
Yes, Hassan is my son name. He's the one who usually uses this computer. Yes, I'm Haidara Cherif, born and raised in the West Africa, I like to say. Born in Ivory Coast, Abidjan, studied there at the LEWW University before I moved here. Here I was just introduced to what I like the most. It was in the business field, which is accountant and finance. This is my background. And throughout the year, I've been in close contact with journalists. So I studied journalism too. I went to the Middle School of Journalism here in Evanston, branch of the Northwestern University. So I have worked for a while in the communication arena, which is a television here. And I'm married with about 4 or 5 boys. Looking for a girl, I never get a girl. So this is about it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haidara. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And our third panelist, not the least, Miss Haidara Aida. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Merci. My name is Aida Oualate Hamahadi. I am founder and president and founder of Justice and Dignity for the Women of Sahel. We usually call ourselves JDWS to just make it short. And I have a bachelor degree in communications and a master's degree in project management. And I'm based right now in Delaware, but the organization is based in New York. We are a group of volunteers that's fighting gender-based violence here in US and in Sahel region of Africa, in 6 countries, Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Oualate. Speaking about your nonprofit, you just said what is the acronym stand for. Could you tell us a little bit more about it? When and why was it created?
Thank you. JDWS was created in 2019 officially, but before 2019, we have been a group of volunteers getting together. We have been working unofficially before it was created. Helping anonymously women in the regions. I myself being a gender-based violence survivor. So for years I've been fighting and coping with it. So we got together and founded JDWS. And I'm sorry because it's.
No, we understand. It's still. People think like when you are a survivor, it means for you that you have to be strong, that you have to be that superwoman, but we are human. Even talking about the subject sometimes can be overwhelming. I truly understand what you're talking about because I've witnessed closely a family member going through that for over 25 years. So I know exactly what it is. Even though I was not the one going through it, I was traumatized for many years. I will have nightmare. So we understand. Please take your time and yeah.
Thank you so much. Exactly, I was going to say it was founded with my personal experience as a survival and a meeting with other friends talking about it. We had a visions to get together and form JDWS. The NGO team will spare no effort to help break the silence and lift taboo to better inform about gender-based violence in order to help women and girls in the Sahel and the US and wherever the fight takes us, we will be there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Oualate. And we are so fortunate today to have also on a talk show another beautiful woman of valor that is also a survivor of domestic violence, Ms. Stigliano. When did the domestic violence started in your marriage?
Immediately.
Wow.
I just didn't recognize that's what it was. And I kept thinking I did something wrong because it was so extreme that I was evaluating my own behavior. I thought I wasn't up to standard.
Wow. So you knew right away, but when it started, did you knew right away that this was domestic violence, or did you just
No,
think, so you thought it was just an insignificant incident?
it went on. It was like the cycle of abuse, so you have the storm, and then you have the calm before the storm. And so he would always come around, so apologetic and try to warm his way back in. But it's like he couldn't get satisfied unless there was major destruction. It was like this insatiable appetite to destroy that was controlling him. And I did not know what I was in until I had a friend after I was in for 2 years who told me he was a batterer. I was married to a batterer, and I was shocked. And I think part of it is too, like when you grow up with, parents, they're wonderful in many ways, but if, you've got a screamer all the time, you're always on eggshells, you're always walking on eggshells. So I was accustomed to, being alarmed, and didn't even realize it, but it was bad. It was very, very, very violent. And I was too far in, and I couldn't find my way out. I just couldn't see how I was going to get out. He had too much control over me.
Wow. You've said so many things, and we will have the opportunity to go deeper during the discussion, because this is deep. And again, I just want to warn our viewer today, we're going to go really deep today. But I think it's necessary because women are dying. Every day you open the news, you watch the news, and the kind of information that comes in is just horrifying. I wish that dream that I had in 2020 of May was not going to pass, but it's happening. And we have power. That is the reason why the title of this talk show is Woman, Free Yourself from Your Chain, because you have that power. No one can do it for you. It has to start, the decision has to start with you. But we will go over that later on. Miss Oualate, would you say that Miss Stigliano's experience is common to all the women your nonprofit is helping out?
It's a very common, and there is no one case same. Everybody experienced the same thing, but the damage remained the same. The experience differ from your background, your upbringing, your beliefs. It's different. I mean, the experience, how you experience the gender-based violence differ from one person to another, but the consequences are exactly the same. We all have the same feelings. I mean, 20 years or 30 years later, you still trapped into it. Even when you get out of it, it affects you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And because the Leadership Excellence for Women by Women is not only for women, because we believe that our precious men of valor are important in the process that we are in. We are very glad again to have on the talk show with us, Mr. Haidara. Mr. Haidara, while I was preparing for the talk show, I came across this quote. If you look historically at the roots of domestic violence, the roots of ownership of other people, whether that is within the family or in the generation of the family, the roots of ownership, I will do what I want. I will do how I want. I will use this person however I want. Those are the roots we are coming out of, whether those are roots of repressions or sexism. What is your take on this statement?
Thank you so much. Thank you to those brilliant women who just speak before me. This quote specifically, I want to know in which context it has been said, because here once you read it, it looked like master and slave relations. Is it out of plantation? Is it just out of domination? So this court tend to emphasize just one aspect of the violence, domestic violence, which is about just I own somebody, I'm entitled to abuse, etc., etc.
Yes.
But for physical violence is a broad sense of domination, is a broad sense of entitlement. And I think physical violence is not only, as the Dr. Roxanne Dryden said, the domestic abuse can involve partners of all race, all religion, all socioeconomic status, and all sexual orientation. So the statement you just made, when somebody entitled himself to say, well, I want to use this person to whatever purpose I want, to do whatever I want to do to him, right? This is a specific term. We want to say that derive from a domination out of a plantation or just between people and the dominated person. So are we talking in the same spectrum, trying to separate what we call domestic violence inside a family setting, or the relation between a master and a slave? So this statement is not clear to me what really he want to say. But coming to what we're talking about, physical abuse and domination in terms of intimate relationship between spouses, I think this is a focal point where we want to address today. There is a lot of things we can say about it. It can come out of a learned behavior. It can come out of a need of control. It can come out of cultural influences. It can come out of situation like, somebody losing his job or somebody have specific problem that conducts him to be so violent. It can come out of the post-traumatic stress disorder, or it can come out of a substance abuse. So every one of those aspects can lead to domestic violence. But what researchers disagree is how much impact those facts have to the domestic violence. Is it somebody who naturally is violent, or is just something that he became violent out of some time of those situations? So we don't know exactly what conduct somebody to have the need to control. But as Tacitus used to say 50 years before Jesus Christ, the passion to dominate, to control one's mind can shape, enlightened human heart better than any kind of passions. So it looked like human beings tend always to control, wanted to control. So as long as we are built this way, I think domestic violence will always occur. Our best guess, or what is our mission to do, is to make people aware. What time and what specific, as the sister just said, she had no idea why she was being abused. She get inside the relation. Is when she get inside the relation that she learned that something went wrong. That's a key point. You got to understand from the beginning what cause abuses, how is manifested to a point so you can quickly identify the trouble you are getting into. So when people are aware how to detect what is domestic abuse, I think we are pretty much in the way to avoid it, in a way to fight it efficiently. So as long as we can detect it, I think we are in the safe side. better than, I don't know, this was abuse. I just saw it everywhere. Well, then there is a problem. I think we have to identify domestic abuse before it starts happening. What is the motivation? So better we know that, better we get prepared to avoid domestic abuse. This is a thing I want to say for this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haidara. And I'm glad that you talk about that, because today's subject, the subject of domestic violence is very deep. And we can go over everything on today's talk show. That is the reason why we will definitely come back at another time with another subject. We're actually working on it right now. Basically, a talk show on how to know the 4 signs of domestic violence, meaning information, education, how to prevent domestic violence, and how to stop domestic violence. So I'm really glad that you talk about this, Mr. Haidara. That will definitely require us to come back and touch on those subjects. As a man, as a husband, and also I heard a great feedback about you being really deep also in the spiritual things. I would like us to take it a little bit at that level. For our viewers, those who follow me, you know that, yes, I am the CEO of Leadership Excellence for Women by Women, but above all, I'm also a woman of God. I'm a servant of God. And I really want us to touch on the spiritual side of this. As a husband, how do you think a husband should treat his wife?
As I used to say to other people, when I talk about domestic abuse, when I talk about those problems inside the couple, I see a woman as my mother, I see them as my sister and my wife. So I don't make any differentiation about men and women. You see some people who say, well, women tend to do that. Women tend to, I say no. Every time I got to deal with my wife, I see her through. She's my wife, but I see her as my sister. I see her as my mother. So I cannot understand why somebody will go to physical fight with a woman. I cannot understand that. Maybe that's my background. I came from a family where I never saw my father raising a voice on my mom. I came from an area where my mom, she's an example of a woman, a mother. So the advice I give to people, treat your wife as your sister or as your mom in some sense. So sit down and talk to her exactly like, you cannot harm your sister, you cannot harm your mom. Have the same feeling towards your wife and see what happens. Well, I know some women are very difficult, but is that raised up to a physical fight? I'm from a background where we used to say that once a woman take a stand against a woman, manhood have disappeared because you are not facing your equivalency physically, right? Though, as you're taking a stand like you're punching ball to a woman, your manhood has gone completely. So who you are then, if you are no longer a man, and then you cannot be a woman. So you became, quote, as an animal, because there is no match between a lion and a house dog. So that's what you want to do. You want to show, what do you want to show to your woman? So for me, you don't need to go that as far as, fighting a woman, beating a woman, diminishing her, insulting her, and humiliating her. Because what we learned back home in our set of education, manhood is gone when you take a stand against a woman. this is the background where I came from. So I would just advise to my mankind, well, women are not your punching ball. She is not your physical challengers, but at least sit down and talk to her. The best men are the men that can just understand a woman or dominate her in terms of mind, not physically. And I know the love of a woman is different than the love of a man, because I used to say women love are pure and clear compared to men, because we are not, so we are human beings, but a different kind. We don't have the same approach facing different problems. So I don't know how to explain that better in better English, but I think you get my point.
Yes, we do.
Women are not your challenge partner. She is just your companion. As the Quran said, because most people use the religion to deviate some understanding. The Quran never said that men are superior to women. No, he said that women are inferior to men. No, he never said that. If you read the Quran, you will see that 25 times he mentioned the woman, 25 times he mentioned the man. So he said we are complementary. So you cannot be a perfect man without a woman. A woman can never be a perfect woman without a man. So here, it tends to tell you that you are not complete until you get a wife to just make you one entire. So when the Quran said that, it means it implying something. You don't need to dominate her as well as she does not need to dominate you. But you are complementary, so you got to work together to assume a family and to raise up your kids. This is the intention. There is no domination here. It's just like you are complementary. So better understand that, and better you understand that, better you get a normal life with your wife and your family. That's what I want to say, Ms. Bouare.
You see, Mr. Haidara, thank you so much for this explanation, because you said one word, as one. The men and the women as one. The men, the husband and wife as one. And it's amazing because I believe Mr. Stigliano can support what I'm about to say. The Bible in Ephesians 5, verse 28 to 33. I'm reading the KJV version. So ought men to love their wife as their own bodies. He that loved his wife loved himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourished and cherished it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. This, I believe, complement what you just said, Mr. Haidara. If you love yourself and your wife is like your own, not even like according to the word of God, is your own body, how can you say that you love your own body and yet you beat on your own body? You kill your own body. That means you hate yourself. And I think it goes back slightly to the quote that I read earlier on. It is deep, because for somebody to go to the extreme of becoming violent physically in a relationship, it shows that the person has personal issues that have not been dealt with. So usually people talk about the physical aspect of it, but there is a great spiritual aspect that is underlining, and people don't usually see it, because when you talk about spiritual things, you don't see it. And people don't usually talk about that. We will come back to this later on. I just want to quickly give an opportunity to the other participant to add something to what we just discussed, if they have something to say about this.
Shall I?
Sure.
Okay. So my observation, going through 10 years of living with my husband in an abusive relationship, and 2 years, well, I lived with him for about 1.5 years before I married him. I think that it is spiritual. We're born dead in trespass and sin. So depending, all the generational curses that come down the line, like my ex-husband's family, they were from Italy. And it was just like all the way back, it was alcoholism. And I think it's in a very, very mean, cruel spirit. And I don't think I've ever seen a human being yet that didn't grow up in that atmosphere, that their filters twisted, their perceptions. So unless, people may say they love God, but if they are just a fan of his, but they do not follow after him, you're left with your flesh. And God clearly talks about what comes out of the flesh. So it's no surprise. Some it's more than others. But I think people, I did not have a high self-esteem. And I was in the Word of God a lot, but because of what happened to me as a child, I never got healed from certain things. And there were patterns that were formed in my life. Because I believe God has a destiny for each and every one of us. But as soon as the devil gets in and he brings trauma into our lives, it kicks us off of that path that God had because of the trauma. And when you're a child, you don't obviously know how to reason it out. And you start walking on these paths that support what the original damage was about. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of the original damage that I believe the demonic realm brought upon a child. So you start getting groomed, very, very young, to have a distortion of what is reality and what is normal. And every person wants to be loved. And so often a man offers love for sex and a woman offers sex for love. Outside of marriage, you've already opened the door for the demonic. You're not walking with God, not a condemnation. It's just that you're not going to get the fruit of life. You're going to get the opposite, which is what happened with me. A lot of times, people are just so hungry for love that they compromise. And when they compromise, there's consequences. It's just the way it is. At the end of the day, I believe God uses everything and works everything together for our good. I have watched him take my life of sin, not only forgive me, but use it to form something glorious in my life. And I think a lot of times women stay because they feel that they're codependent. That man is offering them something that they don't feel they can survive without. So I know that happened for me, and I didn't come into contact with that until 2004. I divorced in 2007. I was with him in 1994. But I was in a counseling session and they said to me, why are you in this relationship when you're with such an abuser? You must be getting something. And I'm like, what? No way. No way. And it really got pretty fiery because I was so adamant that I had good intentions, but at the end of the day, there was something that I wanted. He gave me something that perhaps I didn't get from a parent. Mm-hmm. And so I was selling my soul just to get that piece of love that we're supposed to get from the Lord. And the Lord will bring us the love that we need. I believe this. I know this. So it took me a long time because I noticed in my relationship, everything was fear motivated. And when you invited me to come on this, it just so happened the following night, I started watching this series called The Maid. It's called MAID, M-A-I-D, and it was a young couple, and there was domestic violence, and he was an alcoholic. But the very first series, the very first night I watched this, I had not felt this feeling in so long. But she was running from him. She was sneaking out, trying to get out. And she was driving down the road. And the fear that came up in me, I was like, I couldn't stand that feeling. But I was remembering like he's coming after me. So I noticed, he's coming after me. I kept looking in my headlights, like that's what she was doing in this movie. And it was in the middle of the night, and she grabbed her child, which I did the same. And mine was 10 months old. And I just think in domestic violence, the control is through fear. And I think that the part that I played was the codependency, that I did not treat myself like I was worthy of something better. So here I was condemning him for what he was doing to me, but had I not been there, he could not have done this to me. So I had to look at what was in me that would put myself in this position. So, okay, so you can give yourself the grace to go, okay, I didn't understand this. We didn't come from alcoholism. I did not understand this. But there's a point that you do, and that's where you have to look at what do you want in your life. And although everything can seem completely impossible, and it did, you have to set a plan. And I began that. And I was literally living with a spirit of terror, because that is what got imparted into me from his behavior towards me. So I knew I was either going to have a heart attack or a stroke, or he was going to kill me. So I had to, but it's interesting because even through all of this, I was with God every single day. And I remember, I just felt like God was on one side, Jesus was on the other, and they were putting their arms around me. And I experienced that. He was always, even though it was the hardest years of my life, God was always showing up for me to assure me he was present. And because I kept going to him, even though it took me time, he gave me, because he doesn't control us. He's a God of love. He doesn't control. It's total freedom of will. But I kept going to him for help. And it took years, but, I completely got out. And it was interesting because in the beginning, I was completely a doormat. I really, really was a doormat. And then I began to sit up. And then I began to stand up, and then I began to push back. But this was all a process. And it's interesting because when I got authorities involved, he was so cowardly. I was shocked because he was such a violent, he just reminded me of somebody who belonged in San Quentin, like some maximum security prison, because he was so insane and cruel beyond. But when the authorities came, he became like a mouse. And I began to see who I was really, really with. But he had a choice. Even though he came from alcoholism, we all have a choice. And God's love is very apparent. And God gave us a handbook. I mean, this is how I kind of view things. He gave me a handbook. I read it, but it took a while for me to piece things together. And one of the things that he did teach me, he taught me two things that were very, very important for me to wake up. I used to get up at 3 a.m. For about 3 years and pray, cry, read my Bible for a couple hours. And one night he taught me that Jesus went to the cross to deliver us from tyranny. And I did not have to live in it. And that was a big one for me, being a Christian, thinking I was doing something wrong. There's got to be something where I could love bigger so that this would stop. So I carried that responsibility for a very, very long time. And it's when Jesus spoke to me and revealed that to me, I was immediately, I knew I was in right standing with God. I wanted to please him so badly. And then the other thing he taught me, I went to a Bible fellowship, and just out of the blue, because it's a process, you know, you've got to go through an emotional process, a mental process. You're trying to get out. And he gives you all the reasons to stay in, because there's so much control, there's so much fear, there's so much, you can't live without me, and without him actually saying that, he demonstrates that. So one night I went to this Bible fellowship, actually it was a Sunday, and the pastor that was teaching, he just kind of totally went off topic, and he started talking about donuts. And I envisioned going to Dunkin' Donuts and I don't even like donuts, but it was like all the array of donuts, all of the different fixings on all the donuts. And what he says is, you know, something can look really good. And this is something I would really love for women to know who are stuck in this, because a lot of times we hold on to that piece that we like so much. Excuse me. He could be handsome, or he could have a lot of money, or he could, you know, have he's very intelligent, whatever. But all of these different varieties that are there, there's that center, that core center. And no matter what he has on the outside that looks like it's better than you or what you want, if that core character is not about love, if that core character is bad, you got to get out, because this is never going to give you what you want. It never will. It's that core character. And that is where you have to look at your own character and go, do I believe God? Do I believe he loves me? Is he a God? Will he help me? And that was when I started my journey out. I knew this man is never going to change, because his core character is formed, and he keeps supporting the same character traits. He talks the game, but he's not doing anything different than he's been doing all along.
Wow. Miss Stigliano, you touch on some deep things.
Can I quickly, just for 1 second, add?
Sure.
I'm listening to her, and as I've been through the same experience she went through in a different way, but it just sitting here listening to her made me think about an analogy of the frog, a frog that you take and put, like thinking about the like rationalizing when we go through this and trying to make excuse for other. This is how I was like thinking about. I'm like, this is just an analogy of a frog you take and you put in the hot water, and when you put the frog in the hot water, quickly he's trying to get out, right? But when you have the frog in the boiling water, he will not know that the water is boiling. Slowly, 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 until there is no way, at the end, the frog will die in. This is just the analogy I have of going through the experience of gender-based violence. Thank you for this, sharing this with us. And it's just, it's amazing how you come up of it strong. Thank you.
I really want to applaud you two ladies, to applaud you, because like you both said, sometimes it can be like a bad dream, and you wonder, am I in a nightmare, or is this my reality? That is why it's very important to know who you are. It is very important even for us parents to teach our children to know who they are in God. There is no mistake for me. Every time that I come on the platform, I address my audience as precious women of valor, precious men of valor. And you'll be surprised how many times people will text me or message me in private and said, why are you calling me precious women of valor? Because they don't know their identity. When you know your identity, it's amazing because even this talk show, it was really, an inspiration from God. I am not doing this by my own. He gave me the vision in the dream, the title, even every speaker that come on the platform, I don't choose them. God shows the people that I'm supposed to invite, the question, the title. He gives it to me and I just wake up and write it down and just implement it. But it's amazing because before this talk show, I did one last week that was talking about discovering your purpose. When you know the reason why you are created on earth, you know who you are. You know that you are precious on God's side. You know that you are more than a conqueror. As a woman, it will help you even before you get into a relationship, because I believe Miss Stigliano talked about it. She was already dealing with personal issues that she grew up with and that were not dealt with. So until you yourself, you deal with it, because again, Mr. Haidara and I, we spoke about it earlier on. This is spiritual. People neglect that aspect, but the word of God tells us anything that you do not bind in heaven, you will not be able to bind it on earth. So before things start manifesting physically, it happens first spiritually. And if you don't deal with those aspects spiritually, it will manifest in your life. It will be like a sign on you that will draw those abusers to you. It's like you don't see it, but it's spiritual, and they can see, oh, this woman is a prey. You become like a spiritual prey. That's why some women, they go from one physical abuse or domestic violent abuse relationship to another. And they, when you ask them, they cannot even tell you why. That is the reason. So again, it all comes back to knowing who you are, self-discovery. What do you want for your life? It comes also about once you discover that, and you know that you have personal issue. That's why even in the Bible, it's recommended, and many Christians, before they get married, normally the two of you go through spiritual counseling. And during the spiritual counseling, the man or the woman of God should be able to detect issues that each one of you are going through, and they need to be dealt with before you get married. Otherwise, the two of you will come with your baggage, spiritual baggage, and it will just become a bomb in the marriage. And it's amazing because following this talk show, again, God is leading me to start I actually started it last year, but I got carried with other projects. But in my spirit, I feel like it's time for me to go back to this program that is called Healing in His Presence. So that so many of us that are broken, so many of us that are dealing with things, personal issues, can come before God and cry for healing, cry for help, so that the process starts with us first, not focusing even on the abuser, but on yourself first, knowing who you are, discovering or rediscovering and taking your position as a winner. So I want to say something here based on what I just explained. It is very important, especially for our single women, to make a decision before you get into a relationship, to never tolerate domestic violence. Once you have that, you make that decision, and then you educate yourself. This is why God is leading us to have this kind of program to educate women. And I really urge into our viewer to share this special talk show. You may not be going through it, but you don't know whose life you can save. Because again, God tells us, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is power. Information is power. Once you have the information, then you can make a sound decision. You can take your stand. So it's important, I believe, for women that are single and will be watching this. We have two great women that went through this. And I know it was not easy for the two of you to come to talk about your experience, your testimony. So I truly want to thank you for being that courageous, to choose to use your story, your pain, to help other women to not go through it. And for the women that are going through it to know that there is a way out, because you are a true testimony today. They can watch you and they can say, wow, if they made it, then I can do it too. To have also a great man of valor here that is also talking to men to change their way, those men that are abusers, to change their way, because again, your wife is not your punching bag. She is not. Miss Stigliano, I think you want to say something.
I do. So I think this is really important. Everybody wants love. So whatever people have gone through, they compromise because they really don't know the love of God. So when my daughter was 2.5 years old, I was, I think, 42 years old, 43. I had her at 41. And 2 weeks before I turned 42. And I was at my mother's, and my mother was never one to share anything of her life, her emotions, her feelings. She was not an emotional nurturer at all. And it just so happened this particular day, my daughter, we were like in a triangle. My daughter was right there. She was 2.5. She was probably 4 or 5 feet from me. And my mother was probably 8 feet from me to the left. And right out of the blue, my mother reveals to me that when I was 2.5 years old, I was sent to go live with 2 different families. And something happened to me within one of the families. Now, I'm only learning this at this age in my life. And immediately as my mother spoke that to me, I looked at my daughter and in my mind, I'm like, she can't protect herself. She can't really describe and tell me what's going on. And I never let my daughter out of my sight. So in that moment, God spoke to me so clear. And he said to me, and I want women to know this. He said to me, it's not your fault. It was not your fault, were his words. Now, when he spoke that to me, I knew what he was saying to me. It was not, of course, my fault what happened to me, but it was all my decisions after that. I lived with so much shame, like I was worthless, which is what got me into a domestic violence relationship and leading the life that I lived. So why would God want to help me? Why would I felt like I was secretly living inside and nobody really knew who I was, like this really bad person because I did a lot of bad things. But what God showed me in that moment, and I am telling you, the shame went right. It was a spirit of shame, and it left me. I was amazed at his mercy and his kindness. The thing that he taught me when I was in the relationship, there's a scripture. It was my favorite scripture forever. It was like the words Jesus said in the Gospels, the words I speak unto you, they are life. Then he taught me one night, but the words the devil speaks unto you, they are death. And you cannot override spirit with intellect. There's hierarchies, right? There's the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, man's kingdom, God's kingdom, and each have an authority above the one under them. So when you're in a domestic violence relationship and he is doing whatever he's saying, if you do not have the truth to combat that, it's going to get in you. And then next thing you know, you've got a spirit of condemnation ruling you. Like you are worthy of this, even though you don't feel like you are, you're trapped. It's just this big demonic nest that the way out is I opened my Bible every day and read. I never read less than 3 chapters ever, because there was just something about threes. 3 is the number for complete. I don't know, but it was like whether I read the same chapter or I did that. I really believe, because God, was I a mess. God took my life that was so upside down, and there was no possible way that there was anything about me that could make my life good. There was nothing, because I had no self-worth. I remember he spoke to me one night and said, the words people speak to you, what people say to you or don't say, what people do to you or don't do, does not determine your worth.
Yeah.
And I went, well, what does? And that is when my journey began with God. I started to look to him like he had the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And so he totally transformed my life. And it's interesting, because one of the truths of my being with this man is, first of all, I was a physician recruiter in New York, and he called me, who became my husband. It was a pastor who had said to me, oh, I know this incredible man of God. So often we elevate people's income, position, title to determine their character. It's not true. It's never to be the barometer to determine anybody's character, their outward accomplishments. But I did at the time. So that was also, and once you sleep with a man, because I have obviously dated where I did not sleep with them, have sex with them, and I was able to get out when I saw that they were not good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have sex with a man, I want every woman to know that God understands how you got there, and he will help you break free. He helped me break free. But there is a spiritual connection when you do have, it's salt. It's a salt covenant. Yeah. And, when you have that intercourse, and, I don't mean to get too graphic, but
it's a soul tie.
There's salt and it ties you. And that's why it's so hard to break away. Mm-hmm. But you have to use the word of God to fight your battle. Let it fight your battle. Because that's what I did. I let it fight my battle. And when I saw that he was going to do to our daughter what he did to me, that gave me all the motivation to look at me and go, who are you, Gilda? Who are you going to be in life? You keep looking at him. Who are you? Are you going to do this now to another person, even though you've done this to yourself? I wasn't condemning myself. I was taking ownership that I did not see myself of any worth. But Jesus did. And so who's going to be the truth for me? Of course, I let me be the truth forever. But I finally rose up because God transformed me, because his word does that for you if you feed on it. And one night he told me to feast on it, not just feed on it, but feast on it. And it was my anchor. And that's what he caused me to triumph all the way out, even though everything horizontal looked like I had great defeat in front of me. He did. So thank you for letting me share that.
Wow. That was actually the next question that I was going to ask you. We are getting to the second part, which is we talk about, at the first part, women in a domestic violence relationship. Now we are going to get into women planning to leave the abuser. And I believe you talk about Ms. Stigliano. My question was going to be, how did you finally realize to leave your abuser? You already talked about that. Now, let's talk about the practicality of that, of leaving your abuser. How did you prepare your exit plan?
So God did, and I didn't know it. But 2 years prior, we were living in the back of a U-Haul because he blew all the money. And I was working, he was not. And I ended up interviewing with this woman who looked like Angela Lansbury, and she owned a real estate business and she owned a rental agency. And God, I was sitting there and God gave me a vision that I was going to own a rental business. And I looked at it and it was so foreign to me that I looked at it. I had no idea what it meant to me and I let it go. Here I am 2 years later in this horrific, and I'm pregnant. I'm 8 months pregnant. And I know he had already grabbed me and I went into back labor. He dragged me. This is not going to change. And it took me 3 years. I understand statistically it takes 7 tries before people actually leave. Some people it takes less. It took me 4. But I was so terrified of this man. And the other thing too was that everybody kept telling me to save money, save money, save money. And I was so afraid of doing the wrong thing before God, because here I wanted a successful marriage. And if I secretly save money, then I'm supporting divorce. I'm supporting something that's not of God. And then I got to the place where I realized it was the right thing to do, because he would try to take our daughter, and he had a major demonic spirit. So I had to walk spiritually and counter spiritually with God, fighting my battle. But I had to be in relationship with God for this to be successful. So I began to save money. The guilt that consumed me, I thought I'd have a heart attack just from the guilt, because I thought I shouldn't. But I honestly, thank God I did, because what he did to try to steal my daughter was unbelievably threatening, calculating, masterful, without God. It was so. I started to save money. The other thing that happened was I was 8 months pregnant. I couldn't get a job for the life of me. And I usually can get a job in a moment. And I never have a problem getting a job. And I couldn't get a job, and I'm getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it just so happened this particular day, I happened to open the paper, and there was a position for a rental agent. And I was ready to have a baby. And that vision that God showed me 2 years earlier instantly came to me. I had no idea that this small little job, which allowed me to work out of my home. And there's so many jobs out there that allow you to work out of your home now, which is amazing, because a lot of women have children and they're like, how am I going to do this? So I got that job, and it still took me couple of more years, because I had to save money, and I pretty much paid for everything, that, all expenses, but I also saved a portion that he knew nothing about. And in 1 year, I think 1 year, I saved $84,000. Thank God, because the lawyer costs and blah, blah, blah. There was also 2 books that I remembered that I really would like. So that was part of my plan, was to save money. And I was getting stronger because I was more in the Word of God. And I knew, because I finally made a decision. It's when you make the decision in your heart, you're going to do it. Now you're setting your plan. Now you have a goal and you have focus. I was focused. And everything I did was based on achieving that goal. And I had no idea every day what I was going to do, but opportunities came in front of me and I recognized them. Because if you're planning something, you're looking for doors to open or close. You're just watching and looking for opportunities. And that's what I did. And I prayed like crazy. I got a lawyer, and it was God. I'm telling you, it was totally God who helped me out. And, but there were 2 books that I want to advise women to get. Now, I used to staff 12 Sears stores. I was interviewing all the time. I was a physician recruiter. I know what I'm doing in this. and now I've owned this rental agency, which is national, international, professional relocation. And I do some sales, but I really don't like the sales. I help people with these books because they really they change your life. So one of the books is called, which I sent you a picture of so that they can see it. You can either rent it at the library or you can buy it through Amazon. One is called Do What You Are. And the other one is called Discover What You're Best At. One of the books is going to show you your personality and how you function on the inside. It's going to help you see who you are. And then it's going to show you how you deliver yourself in society. And it's deep, it's rich, and you will not be bored. And it's going to help identify, your gifts that you never knew you had. You didn't even know they were gifts. And because God gave us innate gifts. And then it helps you put those gifts from your greatest strength to your weakest and the jobs that would be a perfect fit for you. And then they have all the jobs based on your education, whether you didn't graduate from high school, whether you got a GED, all the way to a doctorate. And I do not have 5 years of college, but no degree, but I figured I was at least intelligent enough as a bachelor's. And it pinpointed me at that the greatest position for me was being a physician recruiter, which ironically, that's what I was doing at the time. So both of those books will literally narrow down, just like a funnel. It'll literally narrow down. I believe it will narrow down the gifts God put in you that come so naturally that when you go on the job, you will be successful. And so say, for instance, it says you should be an engineer. Well, it will literally break down every kind of engineer there is and the one or two that you would be best at. There's 5 tests. You never want to cheat yourself because it's going to show you the way your brain works, what your strengths are, like either not academically, but whether you're industrial, mechanical, numerical, social, and then it puts it in an order, and then the jobs that use that perfect order that you're made from. They're phenomenal books to have. One is called Discover What You're Best At. The other one is called Do What You Are. And I'm trying to remember who the authors are, but I gave that to you. I can't remember this second.
Yeah, I will make sure to put it on top of the video so that our viewer can definitely get the book if they want to. We do want to also make sure that we get great feedback from our male panelist today, Mr. Haidara. We know that he had another commitment coming very shortly, so we still want to give him some opportunity to give us his opinion as a man. What would you advise for women planning to leave a domestic violence relationship?
Thank you, Bouare, and thank Ms. Gildas for the input she gave us. I think it's a great point she, emphasized. Once you sat down and think about your relation with your partner, and then you see no outcome, when you sit down and say, for how long I've been here and what I have accomplished, and then you see nothing, well, ask you a hard question. Did this relation take me forward? When finally you answer all those questions and you know there is no satisfying answer through this violent partnership, well, no one can just convince you or just make you leave, because the decision ultimately came to you yourself. You got to decide. Nobody else can just take this challenge from you. Nobody can just do this challenge at your place. So you might think sincerely and rightfully, it's time for me to go. Now, what makes you stay here. Sometimes you say, well, the guy might change. Maybe I got to give him all the opportunity, and then let's see if it's gonna work out. I think this is it's wrong for many reasons, because as Miss Gilda said, once that's the way you are, there is no way nothing can change you. As she said, and I like it very much, that core will define you. That's the way you are. And I invite all women sometimes to find this guy, regardless of his money, regardless of his, physical build, etc., who he is really. Once you find out who he is, then you can know surely that this guy will never change. His nature is violence, is controlling. I think it's a time for you to step out, because there is no hope. This is the way he is. Nothing can change it. Now, if you are in a relationship because you want a material life, and the guy is very fortunate, he got money, if that's the reason why you are in, then there is no solution for you, because as bad as you can be, you are not interested in love, you're interested in material, and he has it. So he will always control you, right? So if you are in the relationship because you want to build a family, or by reason of love, that love, you can know that you will never have it, because that man is not somebody who can satisfy the way I intend to live. So it's time for you to walk away, right? So I think the ultimate decision came to a woman, whatever she wants to stay in, and what is the purpose for her to be in this relationship. Is it to build a family, or is for love, or for something else? Well, if it's for family relationship, if for love, you can find yourself that I will never have love with this guy. I can have money with him because he has it. I can have position with him because he's powerful. But love or family, spirit, I will never have it with you. So the decision belongs to you, and then you got to understand it's time for me to step out, because I will never find what I'm looking for with this guy. So it just remains totally in the woman's hand, the type of man she is looking for, the type of relationship she's looking for. Once you don't have what you want, it does not take about 10 years for you to decide, or 5 years for you to decide. You should know exactly. Gilda said that before I entered this relationship, I was myself problematic, right? What is your part in this relationship being what it is? Solve your problem, solve your own part of the problem. The other part, you can solve it because he has to solve it. And once you cannot solve it, it's time to leave because you've done your part. And then I think the next step, you should know better than anybody what you should do. That's what I want to add up to this so bright and so interesting point Gilda has just emphasized to us. Thank you, Mr. Bouare.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haidara. This was really a blessing to have you in the midst of us. We know that you have another commitment, so we're not going to hold you. We will continue with our two guest speakers. But
Thank you so much.
I truly hope that this won't be the last time that we will have you on the platform, because we believe you have a lot to contribute. You have a lot, your part to do in this rebuilding of women and pushing us to move forward toward our destiny. Because when we become a better person, a better version of ourselves, we can be also a better version of being your soulmate, if I should say that. Yeah. So thank you so much. We want to thank you again for your time, and we wish you the very best and a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, you are muted.
Oh, sorry. So thank you very much, Gilda. Thank you, Aida. I think we shall talk pretty soon again. Thank you, Ms. Bouare.
Thank you so much. Miss Haidara, sorry, Mrs. Oualate.
Yes.
How do you help women in the domestic violence? Do you operate only in the United States?
Thank you so much. First of all, just a quick answer to your questions earlier. For a woman to get out of the relationship, they have to know all the signs of the wheels, what we call a wheel of power in GBVs, in gender-based violence language. So it will be very interesting for you to do that show regarding the sign.
Yeah.
So briefly, they are like using intimidation, using emotional abuse, minimizing, denying, and blaming, using male privileges, using economical abuse. So it is very, very important to go through each one of these. That we have to, educate ourselves about those signs earlier, and we have to have a self-worth. So nobody deserves, we are better, we know ourselves, we love ourselves better than anybody else's. So we have to have a self-worth. But it's not easy. It's, easier to say that than done when you're living. I know that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will go back to the question now. Once reported, we will refer the survival to the services for appropriate care. We remain attentive to them, and we try to help them for a social reintegration so that their financial autonomy, but with the difficulty of financial and technical support in this area, we will still be very limited. And we operate in US. In the US, it's a little bit, so far since we are based in New York, so we work closely with New York City Mayor Office and doing a lot of sensitization because of COVID, there is not a lot of activities we can do on the ground, but we do a lot of webinars and we do a lot of sensitizations. We're trying to reach out to a lot our communities. Since I'm from Mali, I was born and raised in Mali, so we do have a lot those communities in diaspora here in US, but particularly for now, we are focusing in New York. That's where we are based. We have several programs in line with our mission. We offer assistance through, as I said, to our partner, mainly to victim survival of gender-based violence. These services are implemented through a program of supervision and support for women and girls survival of violence, GBVs, all kind through by identifying and referring them to the appropriate provider. A program to train and educate survival about their rights. Social worker and groups in gender-based violence, meaning all the local GBVs actors on the ground. At this time, we must talk, So a program of information, awareness raising and education of the population and the different type of violence against women and girls. Raising awareness among young people to promote the importance of positive masculinities. That's like not exhausted list of how we have been operating so far.
Thank you so much, Miss Oualate. And again, to our viewer, this is very, very deep, and we can't really touch on every aspect. Today, I will call it actually an introduction. And as stated earlier on, we will come back with a much more talk show to detail on each aspect of domestic violence. Now, we are going to get to the third section of our talk show today, which is women starting a new life. So again, we started by women living in a domestic violence, women planning to leave the abuser, and the third section is now women that have left and are starting a new life. Miss Stigliano, how was it for you and your daughter to start a new life? how did you find the strength to keep pushing?
My girlfriend that had told me that I was married to a batterer, you know, she pretty much said to me, I was terrified to go on my own. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could survive on my own. I think that was part of the reason I was also with this man. I thought, you know, I was going to be in real estate. I did not have my real estate license at that time, but I was going to pursue that. And he was a builder. He was a contractor. And what I'm trying to say is that I didn't feel like I had anything that I could do to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And now I had a baby. And I'm married at 39 years old, first time. I wanted a family so bad. It was my dream since I was a kid. And it just never happened for me. So letting go of this was huge. I did not want to let go. And I did not, even though my parents weren't perfect, my parents were together and they loved each other very, very much. And I didn't want to be without for my daughter, a father. So when I, you know, got to the place, none of it was easy. But she said to me, my friend said to me, they're both going to be hard. Choose your hard. And they're both going to be hard. Nothing's going to be easy. Yeah. One of them, they're both going to cost you, but one of them is going to give you better fruit than the other. And I just really hated that. I was like, you know, I think people go and stay in abusive relationships because they have a fairy tale. They have a fairy tale they want. And it's not turning out, and they don't want to let go of what it started out with, because usually it starts out good, it's romantic, it's sweet, they love you, blah, blah, blah. And you hold on to that and you think that, oh, I'll get it back. But oftentimes that's just the ploy. You know, that's what they give you to get what they want. Mm-hmm. And it's not coming back, especially if you watch the character over time, it's not coming back. The gift that you get to give, that you get to walk away with knowing it was not for nothing, was that you gave love. And it was up to them to choose love or to remain as they were. But I know for me, with every single thing I went through, God used all of it. And the greatest fear of my life was that I could not survive on my own. And out of it, God had me have my own business. I became the provider and I became successful, whatever that is, right, to somebody. But for me, I became successful. Mm-hmm. And I was helping other families. I was helping people financially in a lot of arenas. And I just know that God gave me, I held on to him with everything in me. I still do. I still do every day, because I can't do life without him. I just can't. And we had a rough time. My daughter and I had a rough time, but we were safe. We were totally safe, and God took care of us. And it's funny because it's a demon, you know, and that demon of intimidation, domination, manipulation, control ended up in my neighbor. It took me 5 years of praying her out, but she would call the police all the time. And so the terror, it was always like terror was trying to be at my door, fear. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn how to stand up mm-hmm. and not be afraid. And it was interesting because I noticed that God uses everything, and he will never give his glory to another, ever. And so he used all of that because I was terrified of authority, because the authorities of my life harmed me. And that usually is happening to a lot of people who are in domestic violence, that they have not experienced good authority. And however they process that information, you know, they're in that situation they're in. And so I was so terrified. And then at the end, you know, the police would come over and I'd offer them, you know, a cup of coffee. I had no fear. The fear was completely gone. And even in my career, I had to go to court a lot because people didn't want to pay me. I was solo. It's amazing how, to this day, I've always wanted to be loved. I've always wanted to be married to a great man who would be a great companion for me, who would have loved my daughter. I still have not experienced that, but I will tell you, what I get from Jesus and my relationship with him, I could never find in a human being. And what I could have in a human being, which is the physical person there, that warmth, you know, being able to be hugged in their arms, I don't get from Jesus. But I get from my grandson, you know, we hug. And I have not had that. But guess what? I have eternal life. And God has blessed me so much. I would never, ever, ever give that up. Ever, ever, ever. And he helped me through it all. And I really am concerned because of the fact that I'm so disciplined to be in the word every day. I never give that up because he's my lifeline. He's my soundness. He's my joy. He's my confidence. He's my everything. And every day without fail, I get in the word. And I even memorize chapters in case I had to get on the road. I speak them out. My heart for women who don't do that, I don't know how they find the strength in themselves, because it's a spiritual battle. And steal, kill, and destroy. The goal is to steal, kill, and destroy your life. And I want these women to realize they have incredible value and that it's not their fault. It's not their fault. I don't care how many men they slept with. I don't care what they stole. I don't care what they've done. If they took drugs, God understands what happened, because coming out of the womb, that was never their intention. You know, you look at your baby pictures and you go, oh my God, that little girl, so pure and so innocent. And now look at what happened in her life. God knows. And he loves you. He loves you. I look at my life and I marvel of what he forgave me for. And it is not minor. It's like sometimes they say, Apostle Paul, move over on the female side of you. You know, I never murdered somebody with, you know, physically, but the path that I was on was very destructive to my own life and obviously to others, even though I was not cruel and mean and anything like that. But I do believe that one of the things women stay for is they're so afraid they won't be loved and they won't have anything else. And it's not true. It is a lie you are believing. It is a complete, it was a complete lie. And I went to this conference one weekend about 5 years ago. And when I walked in, this pastor looked at me and said, ask God what lie you're believing, and then ask him what the truth is he wants you to believe. Well, I never thought God would actually answer me, but I just kind of walked towards to go in the big conference room. And I walked in my head, I went, God, what lie am I believing? He said, that you're alone. I couldn't believe he answered me. And I went, oh my gosh. And then I said, well, what's the truth that you want me to believe? And he said, that you're never alone. I'm always with you, taking care of you. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I guess I want to leave that with women to please don't condemn yourself. You've already got somebody condemning you. You're not worthy of the condemnation. Get the help, get the counseling, get the support. And if you're not happy with your counselor, move on. Stop thinking there's something wrong with you. Be true. Love you the way you would want someone to love you. You've got to start loving you somehow. Find a place that you will love you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Miss Stigliano, for your final word. Whew. You both have talked on the financial issue, the financial aspect that can also prevent so many women to want to find the courage to get out because they don't know what tomorrow is going to be. That's where I want to actually ask my next question to Ms. Oualate. How can viewers support your organization? Because you talked about it earlier on, that when women are getting out, you also, your organization help them also in some financial capacity. And we know in order to help, you need contribution. Let's talk about that. I believe when you and I talked before the talk show, you told me that once a year, you participate in the annual Tuesday giving in New York. Can we talk about it? And can you tell viewers how they can support your organization financially?
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to your set. And I would like, with your permissions, to pay a warm tribute to all those who work hard for the promotions and protections of human rights, especially women's rights. This struggle is the fight of all. No one must stay away from this fight to deliver the woman of gender-based violence in the world, especially in Africa, in Sahel, Sahelo-Saharan regions. This is why JDWS, Justice and Dignity for the Women of Sahel, has conducted and continue to conduct extensively awareness raising, sensitization, and advocacy campaign to put an end to the terrifying violence against women and the girl forever and for good. It's also an opportunity for me to launch a vibrant appeal accompanied by a heartfelt cry to all donors, technical and financial partners, to commit more to better mobilize human, financially, and resources for a holistic, effective, and efficient fight against gender-based violence. I cannot conclude without informing all citizens of the official launch of the platform. We are right now working, we have finished a platform we call it's called Dinal. Dinal, it's a word in African dialect, Fulani. So Dinal, it means protection. So the platform's name, it's Dinal. So we are right now, we're gonna be launching it. So what's the platform will do? This will be only for the African sections of JDWS, because in Africa, in the Sahelo-Saharan region, we have a fight going on. We have political unrest. We have a lot abusing. So who say fight, who say war, says who are the first victims? They are, kids and the women. Yeah. So through this platform, we're gonna be, people can go and alert us about the situation. They can do it either anonymously or they can do it openly by telling us who they are. So they will tell us all the minimum informations, and then we will, because we will refer, we treat the alert and we will refer them to the appropriate gender-based violence partner that we work with. So in Africa, we have several countries that have a few of what we call one-stop center. So they have this one-stop center. They have all the services, combined services that a gender-based violence survival may need. We're talking about medical support. We're talking about judicial support. We're talking about protection. We're talking about shelter. We're talking about all kind of holistic approach. So not all the countries have that. The few, and not all the cities have that, especially the cities in the conflict areas don't have it. So we just have a call. We can have a direct survival to a center. This is how important it is for us to get support, because not only for this platform to be very efficient and help us to identify and to have survival coming and because it's a taboo. It's difficult when you are in a situation, who to talk, where to go, and who's gonna help. So the importance of this platform, it's being able to connect those survivors to the services they might need. And the services, the services are very limited. The service providers are very limited. So the first thing, first it's alerting and letting the survivor know they can reach to us, and we connect them. But the second, we will need support, not only to develop better this platform, to be able to have them talking instead of writing, because not everybody knows how to write. Everybody, I mean, we have it in 3 languages. We have it in French, Arabic, and English, but not everybody went to school. So we will we will need help to develop better these tools we are having, a wonderful tool we are having. So not only to develop that, but also to help the local providers to have a holistic approach and means to take care of the survival. We will we have been participating in Giving Tuesdays almost now 2 years. But
what's the date for that? Which date exactly?
It's November this year. It's every year, usually the first Tuesday of December, but this year it's on November 30th.
November 30th, which is Tuesday, right?
Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, November 30th. And the importance of the Giving Tuesday, people can still give us through the link through our website, which is www.jdwssahel.org. But what's important of the Giving Tuesday, it's the match. The donor match wherever amount we receive. If it's $1, the match is $2. So for the 24 hours on November 30th, it's very important that everybody is participating, all the big and small organizations who are humanitarian organizations are participating in this. So it's very important to support a small and newly founded organization like ours. And we are all volunteer based. Nobody is being paid. We have been paying out of our pocket what we have been doing so far. And we have done a lot so far with the little mean we have. I'm just gonna quickly go through, like in Mali, so far we have taken care of 3 survival, and we have done 3 awareness activities, and at least 20 participants per activities. In Senegal, we have done 4 awareness activities on the ground, including at least 18 people. On Burkina Faso, we have done 3 activities, 2 training activities, and a debate including at least 20 people. Mauritania, we have 2 donations of equipment into the children hospital and equipment. In Niger, we are doing the awareness, and we have done a quick study of, so far on 2020, we have done a quick study of COVID, the effects of COVID on GBVs, like a correlation of COVID and GBVs in the settings. So that was in 2020. That's what we have done so far. And we have a lot of projects in line trying to get organization or people or donor to support us to be able to fulfill these missions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Haidara. Miss Stigliano, what would be your...
Miss Oualate.
Oualate, sorry.
Aida, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Oualate, for the correction. Miss Stigliano, based on what Miss Oualate just said, what will be the final word that you will have for viewer regarding Tuesday, November 30, the Giving Tuesday? You know the importance of having the finance for those organizations to be able to run and help women that are still going through domestic violence situation. What will be the appeal that you will have for our viewer regarding Giving Tuesday?
Well, when I was 24 years old, I was taught that if you make God your partner in life and take care of his children, he'll take care of you. So at the age of 24, I started tithing. And I know I'm not under law, but it's a principle to give of your first fruits. So I have never, to the best of my knowledge, in all of these years, I don't believe I've ever failed. And even when I didn't have enough money to put food on my table, and that is the truth, I always gave off my gross. And I'm not somebody who, you know, I'm more generous than I am trying to go, okay, I just gave my 10%. No, no, no. And when God puts people in front of me, I always assume that's who he wants me to help. I mean, I kind of walk with him on it. I say all this to say that all of these women who are struggling in domestic violence and are participating in this on whatever level, that they should sow into it, because the very thing that they want and the help that they want, if they support an organization like this that's trying to help them or help other women, they're sowing seed and they will reap a harvest. It may not come from that organization, but they will reap a harvest. So I am just a living testimony that God will always provide for you. And that's a great security. It's a great security, because I have never failed, and I do completely rely on him to take care of my daughter and to take care of my grandson and myself. And he has prospered me immensely, because there's just the principle of sowing and reaping. And I have a garden in the backyard, and every seed I've sown, I've never just seen one fruit come up. I see tons. And so with this organization supporting the means to rescue and help people out of domestic violence, if that's the very thing that you want for your own life, give into it, and you'll see what God will do for you. It's just a principle that is God's principle of life. So I totally support what Aida is doing, and I would be very happy to help her. Very happy to help her.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stigliano, for your call for giving. And again, as a reminder, Giving Tuesday is in 2 days. That's the reason why we are releasing the talk show today, just to get you prepared. And again, this is a great opportunity for somebody who loves to give, to be able to do more. For instance, if you give 20, that would be matched to, and it will be $40 that the organization will receive. And that is awesome, because I think, you know, it can help you even to give to JDWS, and also other organizations. And because we also believe in what you are doing, we are a nonprofit. We also need funding, but you also believe in giving, just like Ms. Stigliano said. So the Leadership Excellence for Women by Women will also be glad on Tuesday, November 3rd, Giving Tuesday, to make a donation of $150. That will double to $300. And we believe that if we all come together, whether it's $2 that you give, $5, 20, 1,000, when you put it together, it can change so many lives.
Thank you. And I would like to add quickly that we provide the tax write-offs, because we are 501c corporations. So we will provide that for whomever is giving who needs it. And that will
awesome.
That's directly once you get the receipt, you will have choice to download our 501c approval letter for you to use it if you need it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And again, we really want to thank you, Miss Haidara, and sorry, I keep saying Miss Haidara, Miss Oualate, and Miss Stigliano for taking time, and even Mr. Haidara, he has to leave, but we are very grateful of what you share with us today. And I hope it won't be the last time that we will have you on the show. Before we leave, I just want to leave all the viewer with this information that I'm going to share. I want to leave you with some of this information. Progress on domestic violence requires dealing with facets of indifference, politics, money, priorities, and culpability. Coordinated community response to hold abuser accountable and offer path to change for offenders and victims. It also involves more than anger management classes because the power dynamics at the core of domestic violence don't shift overnight. It requires investment in education, training, counseling, crisis intervention, law enforcement, judicial reform, housing, and substance abuse. In reality, the options of staying or going carried risk. If communities don't stop blaming survivor and make access to crisis assistance a reality, the abuse of intimate partner will never be brought under control. If batterers don't get professional help to change their mindsets, police barricades at murder scene will keep going up. Never forget that your life and that of your loved one is precious. Remember, you can always call 911 if anyone is hurting you or threatening to hurt you. Ms. Stigliano talked about this. It is not your fault. There are potential consequences for the abuser, such as arrest, conviction for domestic violence, and even immigrant for deportation. But remember, it was the abuser who took the action that resulted in you or your loved one needing to call the police for protection. If you do call the police and they respond in an appropriate manner, such as ignoring your call for help, consider consulting with your local domestic violence agency. And again, I will be leaving all the contacts, the phone number to call in such a case. I'm going to leave you with some statistics here on domestic violence. According to the U.S. Advisory Board on Child Abuse and Neglect, domestic violence may be the single major precursor to fatalities from child abuse and neglect in the U.S. Women aged 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 generally experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence. Women in the US are 11 times more likely to be killed with guns than women in other high-income countries. Precious women of valor, you do not want to be a statistic. You do not want your children to be a statistic. This is my final word for today. Thank you so much for staying with us. And we hope to come back to you again with another talk show on how to know the 4 sins of domestic violence, how to prevent domestic violence, and how to stop domestic violence. Thank you so much for your time and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.